This week's coffee is going to be Honduras Santa Marta, Pacamara, micro lot number 236. Welcome to episode 152. My name is Steve Layton, and this week's going to be all about Honduras Santa Marta, Pacamara, lot number 236. So, as the title suggests, the varietal is a Pacamara. Pacamara is a varietal which is a mix of Pacas and red Maracujip. Pacas is a natural, spontaneous mutation of Bourbon, similar as Caturra is in Brazil and Villasachi is in Costa Rica. The varietal was found in 1949 on the San Rafael farm, which is in the Santa Ana volcano region of El Salvador. The farm belonged to a family which was called the Pacas family, hence the name Pacas for the varietal. And at the time people thought that it was kind of like it was a hybrid between Typica and San Ramon. But later it was kind of worked out that it was a natural mutation, that the coffee naturally changed. And this is what happens with coffees, they evolve and change as time goes on, and you end up with these tiny minor changes with the varietals. The Pacas family still remain in El Salvador, and they're kind of incredibly well known within the coffee regions of El Salvador, and still produce some amazing coffee. Must be pretty cool though to have a varietal named after you. I'd quite like the Layton varietal. It's got a certain ring to it. But that's the Pacas part of the Pacamara. The next part is red Maracujip, which is a mutation. This is a mutation of Typica. It's kind of known in coffee circles as the giant bean or the elephant ear, which I really don't like. But the reason it gets these names is because it has very large leaves, very large fruit, and very large seeds. So the coffee beans are particularly big. The varietal Maracujip appeared first of all in 1870 in the Maracujip province of Bahia in Brazil, and kind of spread from there. And yeah, honestly, when you see one, you know the difference between. And I've got some photos here to show you of the Maracujip plant, and you can see kind of how different they are. You stick the two side by side, and you can see really how large they are. The photos, by the way, of the plants are very kindly supplied by Miguel from Isla Coffee. I kind of cried on Twitter on Wednesday night and said, has anybody got any photos? Because I really wanted to include lots more photos in these in my mugs. And he very kindly came up with some, so thank you very much for those. I also made another plea to a friend who I knew was on this farm last year. And Søren Stiller from Denmark, who is the barista champ of 2010 for Denmark, and he very kindly supplied me all the photos that you're going to be seeing when we talk about the farm. So Søren, thank you very, very much for those, really is appreciated. So some Pacamara facts. Pacamara, just like the Maracujip, is a very tall tree, very large. The bean is big, oval shaped, much longer than wider though, and produces around about 12% peaberry, which I didn't know until I did a bit of reading in a book to do this one. So fairly interesting kind of fact. The average screen size, now this is the size of the bean that comes out, is nearly always above screen 18, which if you don't know what it is and why should you, it's huge. Means that you end up with a much larger bean, and if you look at the beans that you've got now, you can see that they are much larger than your average bean. They have to be roasted a little bit differently. You need to slow the profile down, really let the heat work, and a much longer profile than you would normally do for, say, a Bourbon or a Typica or something like that. So there's some Pacamara facts. This is the third year that we bought from this farm, and I would love to work much closer with these guys. We do have an importer in the way, which I feel is a little bit of a shame with the coffee, because you will find this coffee in lots of other places. but you'll find out that you won't find this coffee in lots of places. So yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. But the farm is called Finca Santa Marta, located in Victoria Town in the Yoro district of Honduras. The farm is 23 hectares and was bought by the Howitt family back in 1963. The family have a longer history in coffee than that, but only at Santa Marta since then. The farm itself produces around about 17 tonnes of coffee a year. It's 1,300 metres above sea level, as we said last week. Not important, just interesting to know. And for me, is one of the best coffees I've tasted from Honduras. They produce 2 varietals on the farm, Cataí and Pacamara, of which this one is. Both which have a great reputation. Both are kind of very well known, and we did have the Cataí a couple of years ago, and it was really good. And Cataí won the Cup of Excellence back in 2006, coming first, which again is no mean feat when you have so many coffees enter. Ana Lucia Hewitt came first in the Honduras Barista Championship using that coffee too, and also came 15th in the World Barista Championship in Copenhagen in 2008 using the coffee from the farm. So again, great reputation, great pedigree to it. What's slightly different to this year's compared to the last ones that we've had, that we were given a number of micro lots to cup from the farm, all different from different days pickings, different parts of the farms, and it allowed us to choose exactly what we wanted, and we picked our favourites, which coincidentally were 236 and 237, both Pacamara lots, both excellent, and it was a really good learning experience for me to kind of see these subtle differences. The 2 that we have, although were very close together, so either very close together in picking days or where they were picked from, are very, very different in the final cup. And you should, if you enjoy this one, you should really go and try lot 237, which is on the site. You know, it won't be there for too long. This one won't be around for too long either, because they were very, very small micro lots, like 4 bags each, I think. So I reckon they'll be gone in the next 6 weeks or so. But it's a very good learning experience to see how different a coffee can be from the same farm, and something I enjoyed doing very, very much. So go and take a look. So it's time to taste the coffee, and to taste it we need to bring out the Wheel of Death. So the Wheel of Death came out last week and seemed to be one of the successes, one of the things you really liked. So what it's going to do is come up with something different, something I have to try with the coffee this week that I wouldn't normally do. So Wheel of Death, spin away. So this week's is Americano. And I hate Americanos. They make me sick in my mouth. I really, really don't like them. I never enjoy them. If I walk into a coffee shop and there's a brewed coffee option and they give me an Americano, I tend to walk out, so kind of do be warned. And I certainly don't ever return. There are some things you can do to make Americanos better. So first of all is pour the espresso first, take the crema off, then add the water. That makes instantly the Americano better. So there's a top tip. And also use a cup which is that kind of size, and use a shot of espresso 1/3 and then 2/3 hot water. That way you don't dilute it too much, you don't have it too strong, it just kind of sits there where it's a drink that you can enjoy. Keep those proportions tight, keep them as you would a milk drink. So if you were making a cappuccino, you wouldn't kind of make them much bigger and you know, smaller, unless you did a macchiato, I guess. So not a good analogy. But anyway, time to taste some coffee. So I'm going to, actually before we do that, we have to snozzer in the bowl. So this smells straight away big, bold, just in your face. There's a lot to this coffee. You know, you can see it's going to be a huge cup. It's actually really interesting because it's quite different to a lot of the coffees we've cooked recently. So yeah, do get your snozzer in there and smell that one. So into the espresso first of all. So in the espresso, it is big. It's really big. You can't almost chew in it. It's that big. It's sweet. It has some kind of chocolate sweetness to it. And it has almost like this, it's almost a bit stocky. It's almost a bit beefy, but not in a bad way. So it's a good thing, trust me. So much so the espresso gets a second gulp. But that's because I've got this coming up, the Americano. So I followed the proportions. I followed the proportions of 1/3 espresso, 2/3 hot water, scraping off the crema before I do it, and I've stolen that from somebody. So I can't claim that I'm creating something wonderful there that's going to that's all mine. That's been done for a little while by a few people, but it's actually not a bad Americano. I've had a lot worse. Still not my bag, but you know, I would much rather have a brewed pot of that than the Americano. But with the Americano, you get that beefiness, perhaps even more so, and you get that chewiness particularly. I mean, it's a huge coffee. For me, this is much more geared towards espresso than Lot 237. Lot 237 is interesting, but it's perhaps a little bit lighter and a little bit more kind of fluffy. That makes sense? Whereas this is a little bit more... So, yeah. So, that's it. Better? I know lots of you didn't like it last week. Hopefully this week I've ironed out a few of those gremlins. And listen, no music. And do remember, life is too short for bad coffee.